nerves. Better shake your booties for Black Girl Nerve.
Hey, welcome to our live Swarm recap show. The gang is in the building. I am so glad to be back for this episode because this episode is wild. So we've got Angelica here, our moderator. We got Josh here, woo! And we got back in the building, and we got Ryan here, who is always here each and every episode, our loyal podcaster. Glad to have you here. So before we get started, of course, thank you guys for tuning in to this episode. We're really excited to really just geek out with all of you. Thank you, Tyne, for joining in. I hope I said your name right. I love the accent on the E. We're excited to have you here to talk about this discussion. Amber, hello to you as well. Before we get started, of course, you can join in the conversation. We're live on StreamYard. You can join us live via YouTube, also live via Facebook, and we're live on Twitch. And you can also follow us on all of those streams, by the way. So make sure you do that. If you are following us on YouTube, make sure to hit the notification bell so that way when we upload other content on there, you get notified of those things as well. And if you're checking us out on Twitter, unfortunately, it doesn't let you engage with us. So thanks for watching us on Twitter. I hope you're enjoying the stream. But if you do want to engage, you can use those other platforms to do so. And we do welcome engagement. We're happy to, show your comments up here on StreamYard. Episode 3, I'm going to toss the mic over to you, Angelica, and we will get right on into it.
All right, so episode 3 is entitled Taste, and by the end of the episode, we'll know exactly why. Before I dive into what's going on in this episode, I'm just gonna go around and get your initial first thoughts upon watching this episode. Jamie, you want to start?
Sure. Yeah. Initial thoughts is this episode is wild. We really dig into Dre's psyche into this episode. She gets way more violent. There's more bodies being disposed in this episode. We dig into her psyche as a psychopath and as a killer in this episode, and we kind of understand a little bit more why. It's crazy. It's very violent, very bloody.
Very, very literally. Ryan, your thoughts?
Yeah, we jump right into the horror with this one. I think this one, if I had to pick one, these episodes are so creepy that it's hard for me to say which one is my favorite. But I guess if I have to pick one, it would probably be this one, because I'm loving how Black people are jumping into the horror thriller genre these days and mixing it up. I love the way this pulled from that genre in this episode. So yeah, this one was insane.
Yeah, agreed. Josh?
This one was wildly intense. I think I'm with Jamie. We definitely dug into just her psyche as a psychopath. Because it started off innocent, okay, she's just doing vengeance for women, but this one is just you're all the way crazy. It reminded me of I think the song was called Loretta off of Will Smith's Lost and Found album. He did a song about a crazed fan who would do anything to meet him. And then when she found out that he married Jada, she's like, cool, now I gotta kill Jada. So it feels like that brought to that.
Oh Lord. Yeah.
Not well, Jada is a little problematic, but we love her. Jada has shown herself to be a little bit of a problem, but that's besides the point. So let's dive into this episode. So we open with the video of Dre recording Marissa following a Nyjah concert, and Marissa at this point is in full stan mode. Now, if you remember from the first episode, she kind of outgrown her love of Nyjah. Even though she still loved Nyjah, she wasn't a super fan. But in this moment, you could see that she was probably just as crazy about Nyjah as Dre was. So she kind of is praising her performance, her vocals. She goes into this kind of tirade, which I want to quote it verbatim because it kind of planted the seed for why Dre is the way she is about her love for Nyjah. So she says, you know, Nyjah is a queen, a goddess, our sister from another world. We love her because she's perfect and she's the greatest. And I'm sorry to say this, but you know, those other bitches can't sing like her, can't dance like her. They can't breathe while doing it at the same time. If I see another one of them with another leotard and knee pads, I'm going to shoot one of these hoes. I promise you that. And then she's like, F these haters, okay? Nyjah is our queen and we have to protect her at all costs. And Dre agrees. So to me, upon, you know, knowing now what I know about Dre and her love for Nyjah and how far she'll go to protect Nyjah or protect her honor, I was like, ooh, Marissa kind of planted that seed. So I will stop there for your thoughts on that opening.
Yeah, she takes that literally. I think maybe that's something that kind of goes into her psyche, is that she takes these things literal. And Marissa's not in that headspace, that we have to protect her at all costs. And by all costs, you know, Dre is thinking, yeah, I'm going to do anything. So yeah, this was, you know, there's an interesting parasocial relationship that she's still having with Marissa after death, through these, you know, through this video that she's, you know, replaying over and over. And it's kind of, it is sort of becoming like a downward spiral into her mental health. So yeah, it's a foreshadowing moment.
Yeah, definitely. Ryan?
I like how you have like two of her idols in one interesting scene. Because you know, you have that spiel about Nyjah, you have Marissa there, and you just hear Drayna be like, yeah. So you can tell like she's already getting like drawn in, you know, by that pull. We see why it's so important. We see why Marissa was that last stronghold for her, how they were, you know, basically it's ride or die for Nyjah in this clip. So you understand where that disconnect for her is, where that switch was like flipped, where it was like, okay, game on, you know, for the rest of the season. So I thought that was a well played scene.
Agreed. Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what's been said so far. I mean, I definitely feel like there's a little bit of a, well, I guess depending on how you read it. To me, I was reading a lot of like romanticism on her end, and so you know, when you lose the person that you love, and you're crazy, it can manifest in all these wild ways, and you know, definitely also because I watched all three today. I don't remember if it was this episode or the last one, but where she like is running the text thread between the two of them, like she's sending it and responding. Between that and the video, it seems like she's using that as almost like, yeah, girl, I support you. We got to kill these. We do whatever we got to do, like a reinforcement of the psychosis.
Yeah, and then the last episode, the last scene, she's like you said, she's texting back and forth as Marissa, and she was like, "We're just getting started," and I was like, "Oh, that's not good." So now it's December 2017, so it's a couple months after her time in Tennessee, and she's now in Seattle, Washington. A man named Dayton, who's played by Nigel Blair, comes home after it looks like a long day at work, and he has a really nice place, and he hears a noise. So he goes to investigate, and he's ambushed by Dre, who's hiding in his closet. She strikes him in the leg with a sledgehammer, and then Dayton starts to crawl away, and Dre asks her favorite question, who's your favorite artist? And he's like, huh? She's like, who's your favorite artist? And he answers back little Gibble. And then just like clockwork, Dre begins to trickle off Nyjah's stats in comparison to Little Gimbals. You know, he has 0 Grammys. She calls him like a pedophile who couldn't like have a hit without a feature. And Nyjah has 26. And she concludes that, you know, maybe Dayton thinks he's too good for Nyjah. And Dayton's like, no, I don't think that. No. Obviously, this man is like fighting for his life. And she's like, well, why did you say Nyjah couldn't keep a man happy? And he's like, huh? And then she pulls up his tweets and she's like, I got receipts. And he's like, really, nigga? Twitter? And before he can really even defend himself, she beats him over the head. It's a pretty graphic scene. She beats him over the head with the sledgehammer repeatedly. Like, we did not watch her kill Khalid. Like, we saw, obviously, but the counter was blocking it, but this time we saw a connection. We had an overhead shot of him getting his head beaten. So like the violence, not only has it escalated, but we're also having to witness it. Whereas before, it seems like, they were deliberate in kind of shielding us. Now they're saying like, nah, you're gonna watch this whole ride. So she like beats him over the head. Obviously he's dead. So that night she's in her underwear, she's mopping up blood while listening to Nija's song, and it's the image right above Jamie's head there, mopping up the blood and dancing along to Hustle Like a Mom by Nija. And it's like she didn't even kill a man. And before she leaves, she checks out his refrigerator, which has all this healthy food. So she goes and raids his pantry, and she loads up his Jeep with all his snacks. So I'll stop there for your thoughts on Dayton's murder.
That was just funny when he was like, "Nigga, Twitter." that was hilarious, because it's like, how many things do you really say on Twitter that you don't really mean? I mean, I'm not one of those people, but I know people that like are just Twitter people, and then in real life they're a completely different person. So to that point, I thought that was just a real moment. But yeah, it's kind of, that was a wild scene, and yeah, we see it here in the graphic, and also props to the sound department, the sound effects that we get with the buzzing of the bees, and it sounded just really horrifying, and it made it eerie. Like the sound of the bees made it sound very eerie. So just really a good it was good on them to add those kind of special effects with the idea of the swarm and the bees and the beehive and all of that, along with this like tragic murder that happened. So yeah, it was a pretty grueling scene.
Yeah. Ryan?
All I heard was when she said, "What's your favorite artist?" I heard, "What's your favorite scary movie?" Because I'm such a huge Scream fan. So I thought it was so like the way she delivered the line and chased him down, and then she had the hard time looking shoes on, and she's like slowly pacing behind them with the hammer and everything. Like I was just like, oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it was happening, but I couldn't look away at the way like everything was pulling you into the scene. And like you said, the blood splatter, and then they take it across into the title, going into the next scene and everything. So it's really painting a picture like this girl cray. Like it's no second guesses. It's like, this is where we're at. So you're along for the ride. So just strap in.
Josh?
I'll be honest. When my man came in, he was like, "Yo, who's there?" When he did not immediately grab like a baseball bat or a knife, I'm like, "See, man, you've been living around these white people too long. Let's talk. Are you walking around thinking someone's in your house unarmed? What are we doing here?" But yeah, I mean, that was wildly intense. I mean, I love the refrain. Who's your favorite artist? Like, it adds a little creepiness to it. And I love that the other artists are just like these ridiculous names, like Lil Gibble. Like, what kind of name is that? And the fact that her thing is Grammys. Like, yo, she's got 26 Grammys. Like, what are you talking about right now? And then yeah, the Twitter thing is wild. And I know it's jumping ahead a little bit, but for all those people who just post where they're at all the time, it's like, yo, people can find you, like if they really wanted to. That's probably the scariest part. Like that could actually happen. I know I've heard of celebrities saying like, yo, stop finding where I live, stop showing up outside my house. I never understood how it could happen, and I watched this, I'm like, oh, crazed fans. This is like Stan to a whole nother level.
Yeah, it stands. And then, like, if you guys know anything about the bling ring, apparently it's very easy to look up someone's address. It's super easy. Yeah, they just go.
Yeah,
they just go to a website, find their address, and if they happen to tweet their location, they're at a party in Hollywood somewhere, and then like, oh, I can just go rob them because they're not home because they're live tweeting everything they're doing. So, tweet at your own risk.
I mean, it's tragic and sad, but that's like how Pop Smoke got killed. Like that's how some of these rappers and stuff like get killed and stuff. They tweet their location and stuff like that. And it's also sad because whenever there's a situation where someone has done something to offend a community or a group, and I don't condone this. I mean, obviously people say stuff that's offensive and that's wrong, but doxing people is never okay. And I guess that's the thing now. Like if you're offended by something someone said or something someone did, they dox their location as a way to call them out. And that's the thing to do on social media. So
Yikes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
So be mindful of what you're tweeting and what you're posting. So if you go on vacation, this is turned into a PSA. If you go on vacation, don't tell people you're on vacation. Just things like that. So while she's in Dayton's Jeep, she starts to research her next target, who is looks like a far right commentator and influencer named Alice Dudley. She kind of gives me like, who was that girl? Tell me Lauren vibes, if you guys remember her from a couple years ago. And she's played by Ashley Doherty. And she hates Nyjah. She tweets a lot of criticism about Nyjah, including the fact that she claims to be a feminist while sticking by a man who cheats on her. And then she ends up like sharing a video of Nyjah's sister attacking her husband, Cachet, who's actually played by Stephen Glover, Donald Glover's brother, in the elevator. So they recreated the elevator scene, the notorious scene when Solange, Beyonce's younger sister, attacked Jay-Z in the elevator for supposedly cheating on Beyonce. And Sam's here. Hey Samuel. Before we
what's going on, y'all?
dive in.
Okay.
So Alice Dudley is not a fan of Nyjah. She goes in on Nyjah regularly, to the point that Nyjah is actually tweeting about seeking legal action against this woman. So she is enemy number one as far as the Swarm is concerned, and we know the biggest offender at this point is Dre. So she learns from other Swarm members online where Alice lives. She lives in LA. They share her address. So Dre, she goes on a road trip. And she stalks Alice outside of her home with a baseball cap on, like very much like Joe Goldberg style. It was like, okay, I see, I peeped the comparisons. And she, she stalks her and she kind of like walks slowly behind her with her little cap, a baseball cap over her head, as Alice goes to the gym. So she tries to follow her inside, but she's stopped by an employee at the front desk and she doesn't buy that Dre is a member. But luckily another member named Danny, who's played by Aaron Goldberg, mistakes her for a woman named Jasmine. And he kind of admonishes the employee for being racist by not letting Dre into the gym. But at the same time, he's being racist because he's confusing Dre for another Black woman who, does hair and crystal healing and all types of stuff. So they chat it up. Dre's playing along. Eventually, they part ways. He goes to a class and Dre picks up a kettlebell. Kettlebell. Yes. Picks up a kettlebell, which we know is not a good sign, and follows Alice into the elevator. And in my mind, Alice is a goner when she starts to say, "Who's your favorite artist?" But before Alice can even answer her, a man walks in wearing a Cachet First Last Tour jacket, and she gets a text from Marissa saying to follow the jacket. She also notices that the guy has backstage passes and she follows him out. So I'll stop there for your thoughts on Dre's latest and the fact that she kind of got away.
Yeah, I mean, this is the one case where like racial microaggressions worked in her favor with that Danny guy. It was so bizarre. But yeah, I was just like, he's funny, but he's being really racist. But he's trying to not be racist by saying, "Is she being racist?" But yeah, she's able to kind of slide into the gym and get to where she needs to go in order to find this woman. And yeah, I just find that whole scene, how that all played out, to be interesting, like the hypocrisy of it all with the Danny character. Like he's trying to be, sort of this noble and woke, white dude, and actually he's being the complete opposite. So yeah, that's really all I have to say about that part.
All right, Ryan.
Man, it's just scary now that she has a method. It's like she's mapping out what she's gonna do. She can easily play with the story because, like everybody's calling out, he was super racist. All Black people don't look alike. So it's like these doors are like easily opening, for her to be able to act out her plans. And the way she can clean up, and she tosses it here, then she's in a new vehicle, then she's over here. It's just like, it's very scary that now she has this plan to be able to carry out her madness. And I would love to know Dominique's like mindset going into this character now, because now you get really into the mental of what exactly is wrong, and and how deep is she going with this.
Yeah. I actually thought they were doing a bit when he walked up. I thought he was trying to help her out at first. And then obviously it's like, oh no, he really took her for a different Black woman who doesn't even go there. I definitely thought he was doing a bit, and that, that whole thing was like hugely ironic. One of my favorite things so far is that she's like ironically a terrible actress in the show itself, because she'll do like these fake smiles like, oh, how's Nikki? And she's terrible at playing the other side of this. Even like, later on when I can't remember the dude's name, but the dude who like she steals his tag, and like
George.
George. And they're talking about the party. She's totally deadpan. And then she's like, oh, but we should go to the party. And it's just like, she's never believable. So I definitely appreciate that dimension of it. But yeah, like you said, Ryan, like she's got a method, and she's confident about it. Like, I got this kettlebell in the elevator. I'll do this right now and leave you right here and drive to a whole nother city. But yeah, and then the obsession that she has with Nyjah, I think, is definitely surfacing. And I meant to say this for the last one too, Jamie. You mentioned the buzzing. It also reminds me of season 3 Daredevil with Bullseye, because they did something similar to show his like mental instability. Like anytime it would hone in on him, like would be like a bunch of weird noises, and then he would kill a bunch of people. So, and that's what's happening.
Agreed, Samuel.
Yeah, I mean, you guys touched on all the major points. It's almost like she's a chameleon at this point. Like, she's so deadpan on, just her normal self. Like, and then she kind of weeds her way into certain people's lives, and she just could care less the way it ends up. I'm just so surprised how she was going to plan out Alice's death, because I was like, dude, like anybody could come in or out of the elevator. She didn't even care. Like, I think it was so much anger that she was ready to do it in the instinct. But which is even more scary is the fact that she's answering texts, which is really her subconscious calculating what to do next. It's kind of sick, because if you're saying that somebody else is texting you and it's like giving you information, you really don't know what she's going to do, what the next possible thing or step she's going to take. And I think that that's the most scary thing about Dre as a character, because it's kind of like she followed George to his house, and like honestly, George could have had a gun. Like she got off lucky, but she played it off so smooth just to use him to get to what she wanted. And I think that just those text messages, I'm real curious where that's going to go moving forward. But Dominique is killing it. Like, she's going beat for beat. Whatever way Dre is going to go, like, you buy everything she's doing. Because I think even that the beginning of the episode where she killed old dude and she's sitting there just dancing around in the pool of blood, I'm like, is this the Joker? Like, is this Joaquin Phoenix? That's what it reminded me of. Like, she was just enjoying it and vibing. And I was like, that's sick, bro. Like, what is going on? But yeah, it's interesting. It makes for an interesting series.
Yeah. And I've made a lot of comparisons between her and Joe Goldberg, because they like to stalk people. But honestly, if I had to choose between the two, I'd rather face off against Joe Goldberg, because he just doesn't seem as unhinged. Like, Dre is scary. Like, Dre is the lights are not on upstairs. So I'm glad, I haven't tweeted nothing crazy about Beyonce /Nyjah, because I don't want nobody at my doorstep. So she tries to break into the man's house and climbs in through his window, but she's startled by his pet skunk, Penelope. And the man, his name is George. He's played by Byron Bowers. He runs in holding a bat, and he threatens to call the police. But Dre kind of feeds him a lie about running away from her abuser, and he ends up sympathizing with her. He helps her like bandage up her scraped knees. He even offers her something to eat. And Dre changes the subject and is like, "Oh, so how long have you been working concerts?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm doing Cachet's last tour. It's okay. Are you a fan?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm a big fan." And he's like, "Oh really? What's your favorite song?" And she's like, "The one with drugs in it." Like that's like any rapper anywhere. You know, she's not being very convincing. So they end up in the kitchen. He starts to make her something to eat, and she isn't really thrilled by the healthy choices he brings out. So she ends up pulling out her own snacks from her bag, which technically I don't think they're her snacks. I think they're the snacks that she stole from Dayton's pantry. And George isn't really a fan of snacks. He tells her he used to be obese, and so was his ex-girlfriend, and she died from a heart attack. So he's trying to change his life around, eat healthy. He can't have snacks in the house because he'll get weak. And he asked Dre, "Have you ever dealt with addiction?" And she says, yeah, she has, but it doesn't really ever go away. So like they're talking about two separate things, but also talking about the same thing at the same time. So I thought that was interesting. And then she tells them, but sometimes it feels good to give in. So I was like, oh boy. So later that night, you know, he's asleep on the couch. She's sleep in his bed. She gets hungry. You know, she's not eating broccoli. So she goes through her stash and George catches her, but he doesn't seem to be bothered by it. He's like, no, go ahead, indulge. So I actually really love this scene. It's not something I would do, but it's almost like a bucket list thing to do. So he's like, come here. So she feeds him like her Doritos, and then they just start like making out and pouring snacks on each other and eating, and it was just like a very gluttonous scene. And then, you know, she ends up in his bed the next morning covered in crumbs and junk food and Cheeto dust. It just looked disgusting, but maybe also really fun. And George ends up like thrown up in the bathroom because obviously he doesn't really eat like this, and he comes in and tells her like, we can't do this again. That was a one-time thing. I don't think he had an issue with the sex. I think he just had an issue with the binging. So stop there for your thoughts.
Foodie's gonna be sliding into your DMs hard.
Yes, they are.
I like to eat. Just saying. But
Oh
Yeah, foodies will definitely appreciate this episode. I feel like it's a nice nod to, and I'm definitely showing my age here, but there's an old movie from the 80s with Kim Basinger and Mickey Rourke called 9.5 Weeks, where they feed each other food in front of a refrigerator and then they start making out. And I think there's a movie called Hot Shots that did like a spoof of it with Charlie Sheen in it. Anyways, you should check it out. But that whole scene with the feeding of the food and it mixing into lovemaking has been sort of a movie trope throughout the years, and to see this play off in Swarm was kind of fun. It was weird, but also at the same time, and it kind of goes back to our discussions, I think even as early as episode 1, talking about her addiction and her interest in food, and how, you know, for her that this is kind of like her drug, and this is her way of medicating herself to get through these, you know, these delusions, these maybe these psychopathic tendencies that she has, that she uses food as a way to medicate. You know, she's not on any hard narcotics. She's not on drugs. She doesn't drink alcohol that we know of at this point. So she's just using food as a drug to kind of get her through. So that was that again, that sort of was another layer that we got to see as to why she's into junk food the way she is. And I just kind of felt bad for, what is his name? George. I felt bad for him because Yeah, because here he is. He's been working out. He's been really good with his regime, and then he fell off the wagon with Dre and eating all this junk food. So anyway, but yeah, it was a very eye opening scene to kind of see, you know, how far Dre is with her addiction.
Agreed. Brian?
You can't be nice to people. Poor George. He was trying, like, he thinks she was like abused and like domestic violence and all that kind of stuff, or something happened, and he just invited her in. You know, he had his nice little calm life. He on his regimen, his workout stuff, keeping it sharper. She like, oh, you have some juice? Let me bring out my chips and stuff. I'm like, Dre, you know you wrong. You know you wrong coming up here and messing up this man's whole lifestyle. And I love how she keys on like, yeah, I've dealt with addiction. But you know what? I'm gonna give into that addiction. No, that's not a problem. You know, just to hear her acknowledge that she has addiction. I was thrown off by that. I was like, well, I didn't think she thought it was a problem. But now she's acknowledging, like, yeah, I know. And what about it? You know, she's still unbothered by it. So yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, Josh.
Yeah, I similar to what my mom was saying. I think it's weird seeing her, or interesting, I guess, not weird, seeing her slip all the way into the role, because the first couple of times she was like unsettled and she's crying and she's weepy, and then she was like, oh, maybe this is not so bad. But now she's like, the lie came so quick. Oh, he's gonna find me. I'm just like, yo, like you are in this. The the food scene, I was just dying laughing. I was like, this is bananas. This is hilarious to watch. But I love that they leaned into the theatrics of it, just the open bag of chips. Like, this is so over the top, but it's great and a subtle. I mean, I'm not as smart as Jamie, so I can't reference other films, but a callback to the last episode where she was, or I think it was the second episode, where she was like, you know, I think men and sex are overrated, but there's other ways to get your pleasure, and I think we should explore that. And so I felt like this was another dimension to that as well. Yeah, that whole thing was wild. But it's cool seeing her, like, you know, she's becoming like this psychotic character. Oh, and the last thing was, as far as the addiction, so when she acknowledged the addiction, initially, and she was like, no, but it never really goes away. Initially, I thought, oh, Nija's her addiction. But then upon playing it back in my head, it never really goes away. Nija is a thing that's ongoing, so that's not something that would go away. So now my thought is her addiction is Marissa by way of Nija. And so the death of Marissa kind of amplified her connection to Nija, but it feels like the addiction, and looking back at like the first and second episodes, and you know, just how tied she was to her, that Marissa was the actual addiction that she is dealing with and leaning into.
Okay, Samuel.
Yeah, the whole food scene took me out. I was like, what is happening right now? I was cracking up, but they leaned into it so much that I was kind of like, I bought it in. She woke up. I think she saw stuff even in the bed, and I was like, okay, this is ridiculous. But he's just up chucking. And the thing is that Drake could care less who she hurts just to get what she needs. Like, she does not care. Like, this man, he was chilling. He was minding his own business. Matter of fact, like, I think if she had to, she would kill him to get what she needed. And I think that is the levels of Dre at this point. The interesting thing about her admitting to the addiction, I think she has multiple different addictions. I don't think she has just one. I think that food is an addiction in and of itself because it's kind of like a sedative for her to be able to deal with, process everything, her mental instability. I think that she's obsessed with the idea that she has to protect Nija. I think that in and of, it's not necessarily obsessed with Nija, but that she has to protect Nija. And I think actually she may be addicted to actually killing people now, because I think like, she's kind of getting so good at it. It's almost like she's enjoying it. It's not just a means to an end. She's like, oh yeah, you can get it real quick. Like and it's almost as though like she's building off of that. Like her foundations of her stability is built on how many bodies she's lining up in the idea of, you know, protecting Nija and honoring Marissa, which is crazy and deluded, but that is her subconscious. I think she's got multiple different addictions, honestly. So I think that she just used that and leaned into it just to use George, because she's like, I'm gonna give him a little bit, I'm not gonna tell him what, but I know for a fact I can kind of get him to lean into me more so I can get what I need. Because I think, honestly, I was kind of like, it's weird that she got up in the middle of the night, and I was like, did she plan that? I don't really know. And that's why I question with Dre. Sometimes she does stuff so calculated that I'm like, did she intentionally do this, or did it just work out that way? And I think that I give credit to Donald Glover because he wrote it that way. I don't know sometimes when she actually planned it versus it being a coincidence. But yeah, how the scene goes and plays out, and he's just kind of like, man, look, we can't do this again. And that's always a famous worst words. That's always going to happen again, no matter what. Like, you need to get this woman out of here. You don't know her for 2 nickels. In one night, one time, you already went off the bandwagon. That's a red flag. But he's taken into her. He feels like he can protect her and get close to her. And yeah, man, he's about to ruin his whole life.
Poor George. So George ends up inviting her to the Cachet concert, and Dre is enthusiastic. She agrees to it, but I mean, she's not really a Cachet fan. You know, she's only there because she wants to get at Nyjah. So she suffers through sitting through the show while George works as, I can't tell if he's a sound or a lighting engineer, but he's an engineer of sorts. So afterwards they go backstage and Dre spots Nyjah's sister, and she learns from one of George's co-workers that there will be an after party. So George, you know, he's feeling Dre. She introduces herself as Shanice to him. So he's feeling Shanice. They have a vibe. They have a thing going. You know, he just wants to go back to the crib, chill, order some food. And she's like, no, let's go to the after party. Let's go to the after party. So, you know, he just wants to make her happy. So he agrees to it and they start walking and she's like, follow me. So I'm thinking, you know, he's thinking it's about to be a little, you know, a little handsy time. But no, she locks him in a freezer. She done already swiped his bed. She locks him in the freezer. He's like, Shanice, what are you doing? Let me out. And then I love how this scene ended. He turns around and in that freezer is a cake for Cachet's tour, you know, in his honor. And he's just like, damn, like, you know what he about to do. We don't even need to see it play out. He's about to eat that cake. So there's really only one more scene left. I don't know if you guys want to address poor George's plight. So I'll pause there.
I just feel so sorry for George because he's just caught up in the middle of Dre's big scheme, and he's a victim in all of this, and he doesn't even know it. And he trusted her, and now he's caught up in all of this. So I just feel bad for him. You know, he relapsed. he's caught in a freezer. So yeah, that's really all I have to say is just I feel really bad for George.
Yeah. Right.
And locked in the freezer. I was like, good Lord. I was like, why? And then it was like he really thought he had a boo, and she was telling him, she was like, no, you said we're gonna go here at this time. And you know, George trying to be a decent guy, a decent boyfriend. He was like, okay, we'll go. And she takes the jacket. I like how easy it is for her just to roll with the jacket though, through everything. And I'm like, what is this easy to go around and get into these like VIP sections and stuff? I'm like, what is happening? But yeah, I mean, you know, like Samuel said, I don't know if she's just this good. I don't know if it's the luck factor or what, but girl is just rolling. It's like no gates to stop her.
Yeah, she's definitely getting real good at rolling with the punches. And yeah, I feel bad for George too. It's like my man's out here trying to live a good Christian life. He got his life together. He's trying to serve the Lord. And then here comes Delilah, leading him down the path of sugar-coated destruction. I'm like, what is happening here? So I did feel bad. And y'all hit everything else. The thing that I was cracking up about, when he turned around, it was the cake, but also that the cake said first, last tour. I'm like, because artists be doing that. This is my last tour. And then
it's my first.
This is my last tour. Yeah. It was like the first, last. Donald Glover, you a genius, brother. You genius.
No. Samuel.
Yeah, no, the only thing I had, y'all touched on everything else, is the fact that it's a good thing and a bad thing that the cake was there. if the cake wasn't there, he may have died because nobody may not went right back into that freezer. Like he would have possibly froze to death. But because the cake was there, yes, he's gonna probably have to fall back down the bandwagon, but at least somebody's gonna come for the cake and then hopefully get him out. So I was kind of like, dang, she let him in there to die. Like she didn't know that cake was there. That man could have froze to death. She could have cared less. But at least the cake was there, so we know at least George is gonna live. I don't know how long it's gonna take them to get the cake, but at least he's not gonna die. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Agreed. You know, George need to make it back home to Penelope. I'm still stuck on the fact that he had a pet skunk named Penelope. And he was like, yo, she fine as hell. Penelope fine as hell. I love her. So, you know, Penelope need her owner back. So hopefully they go back there, get the cake. I mean, they're probably going to see him. I'm feeling like half naked with just cake all over him. But, you know, we'll see. At least we know that George made it out of there alive. He's not one of Dre's numerous victims. So good luck to you, George. So meanwhile, Dre heads to the after party and she kind of tries to, like, you know, get into the scene. She picks up a cupcake. And I love this part because when she gets approached by a man, he's like, oh, do I know you? And she's like, no. And she like flicks the icing towards him. And the guy's like, oh, my name is Jesse. You know, I'm an actor. I'm on Grey's Anatomy. This is obviously a very clear reference to Jesse Williams, who's this guy. Actually, if you look up the guy, we don't really get a good view of him, but if you look up the guy, his name is Darren Kane. He does look like a great value Jesse Williams. So, you know, yeah, Dre's not trying to hear it. Her focus is on Nyjah. She kind of wanders around the party and she ends up seeing Nyjah dancing in VIP with Cachet, and she's just overwhelmed by Nyjah's presence. She's transfixed. And she just starts to walk in slow motion towards her. And then we hear Maxwell's cover of This Woman's Work play. Like she's just caught up in the moment. And she starts to walk closer and closer. And someone rolls out a dessert cart and she grabs this big old chocolate ball and begins to kind of like devour it while looking at Nyjah while this song is playing in the background. It's just all very like sensual and carnal, and then someone's like, oh my god, did you just bite Nyjah? So whole time she was not eating any chocolate, she walked up and bit Nyjah in the face, and everyone's like, yo, did she just bite Nyjah? What kind of vampire stuff is that? So she's horrified. She runs out of there. She panics, and as she's running out, two guys who are having a smoke break outside say, you know who that is? That's the girl from Love and Basketball. So before I turn it over to you guys, we had mentioned throughout this recap series that we were going to talk about the real life events that inspired the show. And there was this rumor a couple years back about Beyonce being at a party with Jay-Z and Sanaa Lathan, who's in Love and Basketball. And supposedly Sanaa got so drunk that she bit Beyonce. We didn't know it was Sanaa, supposedly. There was just a rumor that someone bit Beyonce at a party, and Twitter was like, who bit Beyonce? We need to find out. It ended up being Tiffany Haddish that outed her and was like, yeah, it was Sanaa. Now, since the show came out and since Tiffany said what she said, Sanaa is like, I would never bite Beyonce, but if I did, it would be a love bite. So just very weird moment in history. So I will turn it over to you guys for that last scene of Dre finally meeting Nyjah.
Real quick comment on Jama says, first time here. Thank you for joining the stream. Y'all should do all the Queensmen recaps. I'm here for the perspective. I've not seen that show. Is that the show with Eva Marcel? I have to check that out.
Yeah.
I've not seen it. And she's been in the news lately.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
But I don't watch a lot of reality TV. That's the thing. I don't.
Oh, this is a drama. This is like a beat.
Oh, it's a drama. Oh,
yeah.
Oh, okay. When I think of Eva Marcel, I think of reality TV because she got her start on Next Top Model. Okay. Well, anyway, So going back to this, yeah, I remember that whole situation. Who bit Beyonce? Who bit Beyonce? And Sanaa Lathan was outed by Tiffany Haddish, and that was like a whole thing on Twitter. So that was hilarious. And even going back further with your recap with the Grey's Anatomy nod to Jesse Williams. Why did Jesse Williams get thrown into this? I'm trying to figure out where.
Why he catching strays?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what did Jesse? What kind of role did he play in this whole Beyonce swarm drama? I need to know what the
I'm about to
tea is
Google
on
it.
that.
Does Donald Glover have a beef
Yeah.
with Jesse Williams?
That's what I'm saying. Does he have a beef with Jesse Williams? Did Jesse Williams do something with Beyonce or her team, or like what happened? But yeah, this was a great scene. I mean, obviously, this is a very direct nod to Beyonce and that whole incident. And, you know, Swarm is very much showing very strong parallels between her life, her fans, the fandom around all things related to Beyonce. Even earlier in this episode where we see the fight in the elevator. Mm-hmm. That moment. So, you know, Donald Glover and Janine Neighbors, I want to give credit to Janine Neighbors because she's the showrunner, are very clear and on the nose that we are taking direct real life accounts from Beyonce's life and inserting it into this show, which I just find fascinating and fun and cheeky. And I'm sure Sanaa Lathan watched it and got a kick out of it. Hopefully.
Yeah, they played the song from Love and Basketball. They referred to Love and Basketball. All directions were pointed towards Sanaa. But Ryan, over to you.
Yeah, I love the Love and Basketball references. Shout out to that. But I'm trying to figure out how you get so obsessed with somebody you want to bite them. I've never been that kind of fan. I'm like, how? It's just like it was like this magnetic pull from where she was standing. She like flicked the cupcake. She walking past everybody. And it's just like, I'm just trying, because you hear so many, not even like the bite with Beyonce, but it's so many celebrities where you heard they have these weird encounters with fans, like somebody grabbing something from their outfits or, you know, something weird when they get off stage. And I'm just like, it's just to be so enamored with that one person that it's like you have to like touch them or whatever. But it was the biting thing for me. I just couldn't wrap my head around it. But it was like the way they played it. You could just you slowly see her obsession, I guess, going in, and like they had, like Angelica said, they had the woman's work song going on, and you know the way she was following the dress and stuff. I guess I don't know, but I was just like, I'm just trying to figure out how you get so in your head, like just understanding fandom, that it's like, it's okay for you to go and check out this lady, like try to bite this lady. I'm like, what is going on? But I mean, I guess, you know, that's the social media, the closest of fans, but and it's still, to me, the VIP. How do you get into the VIP section? Like Sanaa Lathan is Sanaa Lathan. But it's like you thinking about somebody like a fan just putting on the coat and getting.
Oh, there's ways of getting into VIP.
I'm learning this. I'm like, Jesus.
There's ways
of
getting
crazy. Yeah, that's insane to me. And like they did, like, you know, because I'm assuming those are like other celebrities, other actors maybe that were in the party, and they chopping it up with her. You know, like they know her, they can't tell the difference. It was way sneaky and insane, But yeah, that's crazy.
Jamie's like, actually, they consulted me for that thing. They gave them some tips and some pointers.
No, did you give them? Jamie's like, I know how to get in the VIP.
That with all the confidence in the world.
You ain't got to be a celebrity to get in the VIP. I'm just saying, there's ways of getting in. If you
get that jacket,
talk to the right folks. But
okay, hey, you know,
get on a list. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That.
Any more thoughts, Charles?
I mean, I thought that scene was super interesting. I was cracking up when Maxwell came on. I was like, this is the perfect choice. This is the perfect choice. No better song. And I mean, I like how they demonstrate the psychosis. I mean, we're dealing with addiction, and the back end of addiction is it always comes to destroy you. in the end. And right when you think you got a hold of it is when it starts taking away things that you love. And that this happened in that moment where she's with this person who she adores and is enamored with so much, and she causes this person pain. So I definitely saw that on that side. But then just them showing all that with her eating the chocolate ball. Because first it was just like bites. Then it started to get like sensual. And then, you know, she went, shout out to Dominique. She took that a whole other direction. And then she kind of comes back. Almost like having like a psychotic episode. Like she was completely like out of her mind. And then she comes back to reality. And it's like, oh snap. Did not know the Sanaa Lathan tie-in. That's hilarious. If I bit her, it would be a love bite. Things that a man could never say. Just not go on record. Up there. You're like, yeah, I said it was gonna be a love bite. It was a joke, officer. It was a joke. But I thought it was very good. The Jesse Williams jokes were also hilarious. Like, oh, by the way, I also invented the term "black girl magic."
I heard that.
He said that.
So,
yeah.
As she was walking away, you can hear him saying like his accolades, what I've done, and black girl magic.
Wow.
Brilliant.
Shots fired.
Wow.
Samuel.
Yeah, all this was just insane to me. The setup for the actual scene, like Dominique just crushed it, because I was kind of like, she threw the other dude off, and he was like, okay, this is Jesse Williams, but it's like, what is she about to do? Like, I really had no clue what she was about to do. I just knew that she was gonna have a reaction in some way, shape, or form, and she was getting real close, and then she saw a dessert bar, and it sounded like it goes back to her comfort, like her drug, like, oh, I need like a taste to kind of calm my nerves down, and she's just in it, you know, like even the way they closed up to the actual, I guess it was a chocolate covered apple. That's what I assumed it was, but I wasn't sure. And just her continue to bite into it. And then that transition, because you see, it looked like she was close to Nigel's neck, but then they kept going back and forth with it. I love the way they shot it. But just her reaction to everybody saying like, did you just bite? Like she was mortified. She was embarrassed. Like it was kind of like, you know what? This makes sense. It checks out. Dre, like, I can believe you probably just lost yourself for a whole moment and bit this woman. It's sad because now I don't know what she does after that. I did do a little bit of research while we were just talking that Jesse Williams, I guess he had a connection with Beyonce's Lemonade director. And so I guess that same as that director kind of brought him into the fray. And then he did have another thing is he had some choice words about the Jay-Z scandal with, you know, everything that kind of happened, which that coincides with the situation in this episode. But again, I'm not a Beyonce fan, so I'm finding out all this. The whole Sanaa Lathan thing, I was kind of like, did somebody actually bite Beyonce? I Googled it and I was like, oh, wow, I see. That's Sanaa Lathan. Okay. But nah, it's just so unbelievable that, I mean, the way they're kind of weeding in actual real life to a one central focus obsessed person, it's just very fascinating. So it's a good character study, but at the same time, it's a warning sign of how obsession can, you know, go, especially with social media. Because this whole entire episode, like, she just got everything she wanted. Dre got everything she wanted and let everybody burn along the way. And now she's bitten the the one thing that she said that she was going to protect. So what does that mean? Where does Drake go from here now that she's actually taken reaction and action on the person she said she was going to be able to protect? So
it's pretty interesting. And it reminded me of my daughter. She was a biter when she was a baby, and babies bite not out of malice, but because they just love you so much, they just want to eat you. So she would get so excited and she would just take a nibble at me. So it almost reminded me of that, of the way she bit Nyjah. But yeah, this is her first interaction in person with Nyjah outside of seeing her in concert, and she was so excited to meet her. And she said that they're going to be best friends, they're going to have dinner together, they're going to have this really great connection. She bites her, like, now Nyjah not going to be a fan of you after that, for you done bit her. So I'm sure Dre is really in her feelings about this, and she to echo the name of the episode, she got a taste of Nyjah. So that is where we leave it. That wraps up the episode. Next episode is going to be entitled Running Scared. I really enjoyed that episode as well. So yeah, that is our recap of Taste. Final thoughts, anyone?
I think we good.
Y'all so shocked.
Stop biting people.
About biting people.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if the bite meant more than just inserting the real life situation with Sanaa Lathan, or because you could say that Dre wanted to take a piece of Nyjah with her with the bite, but at the same time, I'm like, yeah, but maybe the Swarm team wanted to go ahead and insert that real life moment into the show and make it a satirical moment and add that pop culture reference, which is what they've been doing throughout these episodes. Also, I wanted to ask, which episode is the one that Malia Obama wrote?
I believe it's Girl Bye, which is the 5th episode.
Okay. All right. We haven't gotten there yet. All right. Just wanted to.
Oh, I did
Congrats
have a
to her,
tidbit.
by the way.
Yeah, congrats to Malia. I did. Chloe Bailey just dropped her debut album this past weekend on Friday in Pieces. So she's been doing a lot of promo for it, and she did an interview where they asked her about her work on Swarm. It was one of those things where they were going in about like people just blowing up the sex scene with Damson Idris out of proportion, and she's saying like, I'm an actress, I'm just doing my job. But she also mentioned that, well, whoever interviewed her, I think it was Big Boy, asked had she ran her work on Swarm by Beyonce. Like, did you ask Beyonce about what her thoughts were on Swarm? And she was like, I run everything by Beyonce. So that's kind of another
nice.
kind of another nod to the
everything.
I talked to her about everything. So that's a nod to the fact that like we were all saying like there's no way Beyonce wouldn't have given her seal of approval on this, since it's really so heavily influenced by her. And we have Chloe saying like, yeah, Beyonce knew I was going to star in this this show. So throwing that out there.
Yeah. I was wondering what that conversation was like with Glover and Beyonce. Like, hey girl, so I want to do a show about your crazy fans. Like, I just want to know what that conversation was like.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure she feels it. I'm sure she, Julius always blocking people from trying to touch her. I'm sure she would love insight on the commentary around a toxic fan base that doesn't necessarily always make her life easy, even though they're claiming to be her fans, right? So I'm sure she got a laugh out of this show for sure.
Hopefully. I saw a clip, I think like last week, of Jay-Z taking some fan's phone out the hand and like throwing it across the room because he was like too close to Beyonce with it. I'm like, yo, it's crazy out here.
Oh yeah, that was Jason Lee. He's the host of Hollywood Unlocked, and he was just like, all up in her face, and he was like, bruh,
it seems like
chill out.
This is a new era of celebrity, because Bad Bunny did that too, like 2 months ago. A fan ran up to him when he was walking, and he just took it and chucked it and power strolled to his destination. Like,
and he tweeted, and I do it again, and I do it again.
Nice.
Different era of celebrity.
Yeah, I think I'm just curious to see what I guess Dre's subconscious is gonna respond from Marissa with what she just did, because kind of like, for a fact that Marissa would say something. If Marissa was alive and she got that close to Nyjah, she bit Nyjah, what that commentary would be like. So I'm curious the next text message that Dre gets. Is it just going to be like, I'm going to gloss over that because my subconscious can't deal with that? Or is there going to be a response like, how could you do that? You had your moment. Like, it's going to be okay. She'll forgive us. We'll do something else. Like, I'm curious about that side of her psychology. So yeah, I just want to see how messed up this is gonna get. It's about to be a train wreck, I'm thinking, but I'm curious.
It's getting crazy. I'll turn it back over to you, Jamie.
Well, that wraps up our show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. We will be back next week. I won't be here, but Ryan will lead the charge and we will recap episode 4 of Swarm. So same time, same channel, same place. So please join us and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.